January 20th City Council meeting to order. Welcome, everybody. Let's go ahead and start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Jeff, would you please take roll call?
Yes, Councillor Mayton.
Absent with permission.
Okay, Councillor Smallwood.
Here.
Councillor Sheldon. Here. Councillor Ramsayer.
Here.
Councillor Hanley.
Here.
Councillor Hokinson.
Here.
Mayor Walker.
Here. Are there any changes to the agenda? Our agenda tonight is to hear about the audit. The consent agenda has the draft minutes from the last meeting, purchase authorization for Mining Park pavilions, resolution for the audit corrective action plan. And we've got a new business of a municipal judge appointment and a contract award for the Revenue Avenue Reservoir Treatment Improvement. Does anybody have any proposed changes to the agenda?
I have one.
Okay,
In interest of a potential new municipal judge appointment, any reason we can't bump that up earlier? I mean, I know she probably wants to be here for the whole thing. I would second that.
okay, all right. Are you okay with that, Tyler?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, all right, very good. We'll move that in front of the audit presentation then. I will go ahead and do the consent agenda, I think, if that's okay. Shouldn't take long. Okay, thank you for recommending that.
Mayor, just to clarify, where's the consent agenda?
I'll put that
After presentation.
after the, I'll do consent agenda and then the municipal judge, and then we'll do the audit.
Just as a suggestion, because there's the action plan in the consent agenda, our thought was having that after the audit presentation.
Oh, got
probably
it,
makes
got it.
sense.
Okay, all right, so that's right. So let's do the municipal judge, then the presentation, then the consent agenda.
Excellent.
All
Okay.
right, very good. Okay, well, we have an opportunity here for public comment. I have one blue sheet. Do we have any other additional folks online?
Let me check here. No, and we didn't have any signups either.
Okay,
for,
all right, very good. So I have Austin Ernesti. Welcome.
Hello, Council, Mayor. We're here really honestly just to say thank you for supporting the Sick Forest Festival that we do here. You guys saw that in your graces to give us some money from the SSCP grant, and we're going to put it to work for our city as well here. And I brought Logan along because we are really excited about expanding the festival into new branched out things. One of which is to help do some restoration on Tickle Creek, which is much needed. And he's going to be our lead on that as we get a bunch of volunteers and bring them into the city every year to do a massive cleanup.
Yes, I think the current plan as it stands is to try to get 500 volunteer hours for restoration work on the Tickle Creek Trail, most of which will be invasive species removal. A lot of our crews have already been engaged in that work with Clackamas River Basin Council. So I think the plan for the festival is that we'll try to focus on holly removal. And yeah, hopefully we should be able to get a lot done because there's plenty of holly there.
Yeah, there's an awful lot of work to do, and we are looking forward to growing this partnership together. And we once again thank you for your support and look forward to seeing what we can do for the city.
Thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
I will just say, we have a contract of something like $250,000 with Clackamas River Watershed Council to do noxious weed removal on Tickle Creek and planting. So that's not something that we should be doing using volunteers for, because we have paid, it requires, there's a whole eradication plan that was done to address that. So I would have some concerns about kind of moving on that.
We work with Eric Butler over at the.
Right, I understand. I'm just saying, yeah, they're getting a lot of money. So the expectation, because I was kind of involved in that, the expectation is that we're using paid crews because we need to be doing weed spraying and things like that that volunteers are not certified to do. So we're going to follow up on that, but I think there's just some more discussion to happen. for
Is
that.
there somebody they should be coordinating with through the
Yeah,
city, or
Tiana.
is that?
Yeah, Tiana.
Tiana's been in conversation with Austin and I apologize, I didn't know your name.
So, yeah.
On this additional restoration work outside of the scope of the contract that we have with Clackamas River Watershed Basin. I don't have all that information in front of me right now, but we can certainly
Let's
get you
have
some
some more discussion
additional
about it, 'cause, yeah.
information about.
Yeah, we're working with Tiana and John, and they actually helped us pick sites for it and it was
Right,
easy
but
work, so.
there was a contract done, so that's where, with $250,000, that needs to get taken care of. And and when I heard that they were hiring having the ant farm go out and do it, that wasn't what the $250,000 could have done a lot of work, and so. Anyway, let's just have more discussion about that. I don't
It
mean to
sounds
be
good.
raining on anybody's parade, but I helped put together the scope of work for that, working with the Metro restoration planner, who was also volunteered to do that. So there's a lot of,
And just for
Tiana.
frame of reference for everybody, that $250,000, that was part of the remediation for
Right.
the Tickle
Mhm.
Creek violations
right.
that was agreed to in the
Yes.
consent decree.
and we had a scope of work and all that, so,
Set the context.
yeah.
Yes.
And we need to follow up with council and give you an update on what the status of that project
Right.
is, so
Yeah.
we can certainly incorporate all
Yeah.
of that in that upcoming agenda.
And thank you for a great festival.
But yeah,
Cool, yeah, we hope to see it bigger and we can have as many discussions if we move to another site, whatever, we're here to just help the city, so.
thanks.
I know that the
Appreciate it.
Tickle Creek is has a big spot in your heart, and so whatever we gotta do to help out with the city, that's just what we're here. If you wanna make changes, I'm okay with that too.
All right,
I got a couple of new wood pieces that I'm curing in my garage.
Hey.
Hope to have out
yeah.
from
Bring 'em on over.
the festival that I got from you guys. So it was great.
Fantastic, we look forward to seeing you again.
Thank
you.
Thanks again.
Thank you.
Austin.
Okay. I heard that, is there, no,
Are we going to the municipal judge appointment, right?
right, but the other thing is on the consent agenda, I think, isn't it? So,
We were gonna do that after the audit.
right, okay. What I'm trying to say is that, consent agenda is just usually a up or down vote. We don't really take testimony or anything else on it. So if they want to comment on that, then.
I don't think anybody has a comment, but I think I would just like to ask a couple of questions, if that's okay. I know, I understand it as
Okay,
a
so-
consent agenda, but is that something that I needed to have asked that we
So
make a change
the-
to the agenda? Or
Mining park, structures. They want to be able to ask questions and possibly comment on it. So is that something we need to move off the consent agenda?
I think if we're just answering a couple, clarifying questions or scope of work questions, that's an easy thing for us to do in its current place on the agenda. If there's gonna be a discussion to be had, then we should pull it off the consent agenda and have it under new business. So if there's just a quick what's the timeline or something like that, we can answer that very briefly, but if it's a actual conversation, we should pull it.
I think it's just a quick.
Okay, all right, good. Okay, well then, the next item of business is municipal judge appointment. Tyler?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. So as you will recall, Council, Judge Brisbane had retired after 30 years at the end of 2025. We opened up a recruitment process for a new municipal judge late October, I think it was, of 2025. We had 3 applicants, 2 of those applicants, or 2 proposers rather. 2 of those proposers were moved forward with an interview with Councilor Ramsayer and Mayor Walker. And ultimately that process yielded one highly qualified candidate that is ready to take the helm as the next municipal judge. Ms. Lundquist is here in the room this evening. I've told her that she can come up if the council has any questions or wants to say anything, or she can sit in the back and just smile and wave if there are no questions. So we'll kind of see where this goes. But just a couple key points of the RFP that was submitted, or the proposal that was submitted. It includes, the scope of work that aligns with the city charter for the municipal court judge. We settled on a 2-year agreement that sort of aligns with some of the other work that Ms. Lundquist does, and so kind of keeping all of her contracts in the same timeframe. It's a $700 per month fee for those services, with the caveat that if anything changes with the way that the court operates or the volume that comes through the court, there may be a need to revisit that dollar amount. That's based on the current sort of practice and process that we have here. And then a couple highlights that I will share, but if you want to expand or add anything, Ms. Lundquist went to law school at Willamette University, been a member of the bar since 2012, and currently works as a city prosecutor for the city of Molalla, Gladstone, and West Lynn. So has, quite a wide range of legal experience, certainly experienced working with cities. So looking forward to having a judge on board again and getting sort of back to business as usual here at City Hall. Anything you want to add? I'll just make you come on
I'll
up.
just come up
Go ahead
with
and
a little more official, right?
We
Thank you
don't
for having
often
me.
have a judge appointment, so I don't know what the normal
What the
process
process
for this
is.
looks like.
Yeah, I'm super happy to be here. As Tyler mentioned, I'm a prosecutor in 3 local cities. I love it. I've done that. I worked at the county for a while, but they didn't really have part-time positions. So when I had my kids, I wanted to do something that I could be involved in their life. Tomorrow, I'm actually going to be driving through on the way to the mountain, doing a field trip up there. So we'll see if there's any snow or if we're going to be playing on rocks. But yeah, so I do that. This is my first actual judge appointment. I've subbed for a lot of judges and covered for that. But I've been wanting to get into judging for a while. I live just over in Damascus. My husband's a high school teacher and we have 2 kids. My daughter is 11 in 6th grade. My son is 9 in 4th grade. So as some of you probably know, that's, basketball and art and all the things. So it's really great. I feel really lucky to be able to do jobs that a lot I could do from home. And then it's scheduled for court stuff so that I can bounce around to all those things. I'm born and raised in British Columbia. And so I was born in up by Kelowna. I don't know if any of you have heard it there. It's up in the lots of fruit trees and all that up there. My mom is American.
Okanagan.
Yep, Okanagan, and my dad's Canadian, and grew up on an 800-acre beef ranch up there. And I'm the only vegetarian in the family, so a little bit of a black sheep there. But my dad was an orthodontist. My mom stayed home and raised 6 of us. I'm the oldest of 6, and then 4 adopted siblings. Of all races and colors and shapes and sizes, including my youngest sister has Down syndrome. So we're quite a mix when you see us all together. But I think it's given me a kind of a unique perspective on the world, a variety of different people. So it's really great. So I'm happy to answer any court questions. I'd love to invite you to come and watch. I don't know if any of you have watched before. Maybe give me at least a day to get my footing. I know Courtney's going to come down and sit with me so I can make sure and do the programs and all that correctly. But you'd be welcome to come and watch, and I'm happy to answer any questions or anything afterward.
Chris, Councilor Ramsay, do you want to kind of just mention to the rest of the council what why you made that recommendation?
Seems like a
Oh,
million years
retracted
ago.
now.
No.
Now that I think about it.
I think something that stuck out to me is there is an air of relatability. And there's a difference between arrogance and confidence, and Ms. Lundquist has confidence. She took the time to come in and sit on court with Judge Brisbane. She also sat down with the chief of police and came and, did her due diligence to see if we were a community that she was wanting to be a part of, not just a job. And she's lived in, I think she said Clackamas County for 17 years. And so, we also asked her a lot of questions about willingness to, expand some of the things, some programs to kind of recoup some costs that are hanging out there, and bringing ideas to the council and not just changing how the wheel works, but working with us to get it to where it's manageable for her and it works for the court and it would work for the city, and council would be, part of that process as well. So we're not reinventing the whole situation. So yeah, she answered all the questions with confidence, and I was also impressed that she asked questions of us. At the end we opened it up and she did have questions for us, and she's willing to work with us if time changes, and be really negotiable with schedules and things if that ever comes to fruition. And so we felt really confident. I felt really confident with her being our choice.
Awesome. Thank
She
you.
seemed to fit what I have seen in court
limited and what I was looking for as a fair judge.
Awesome, thank you.
So,
And I will say that I spent some time with Courtney this morning, and my plan is to, at least for the first 4 to 6 months, just status quo, do all the things and learn about the, this community and where the kind of choke points are for enforcement and all that stuff. And then later on, like you said, talk about those, maybe recouping some extra costs and all that kind of stuff or anything new, so.
And if I may, I would just add that, my preference, all of this is your appointment, not my hire, is that we have a more frequent check-in than once every 30 years. So implementing some sort of process for the
That
judge
seems
to come
reasonable.
and provide an overview of the court, what's going well, what's not going well, talk about program changes if there are those. And so we don't
For
have
sure.
a schedule for that, but I
Sure.
think that's something that Ms. Lundquist and I can work on to get on the
Absolutely.
council agenda.
That
And
sounds
I
great.
really appreciated your collaborative approach to working with the police department and the city council and the city manager and all the court staff here at the city already to just, kind of figure out what's working
Yeah,
and
for
what
sure.
might work better and be able to kind of get feedback from the officers and the chief and, provide them feedback if there's, something that needs to be, somebody needs to kind of be sure to do something different the next time, kind of taking that aside and probably kind of counseling them to just kind of,
Absolutely.
be sure to do this next time. So I really appreciated your flexibility and your collaboration.
Awesome.
So I think it, all in all, it was a good hire. I feel pretty good about. So we have a motion here.
I move to approve the agreement between the city of Sandy and
It's a hard name.
Kindred.
Kindry, yeah.
Kindry.
I get
Thank you. I'm
Kendra,
like, I'm gonna mess
Kendry,
this
all
up.
the things.
and Kendry Lundquist for the municipal court judge position.
I will second.
I have a motion from Council Sheldon and a second from Council Ramsayer to approve the agreement with the new Sandy municipal court judge. Everybody in favor, vote aye.
Aye.
Opposed, vote nay. Motion passes.
Awesome.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you so much.
Lindquist.
Thank you.
I can just call you judge. I
Not
don't
as
have to
judge.
decide.
Don't have
First
to
name,
try
is
to
it last
pronounce it.
name? It's-
Yeah.
Is there a swearing in for this position or is it just an assumed title given the contract?
It's an excellent question
That's
that
a
I
great
don't know the
question.
answer. I think it
Well,
depends on the
haven't we
city.
defer to legal counsel on the Zoom call to answer that? Not to put you on the spot,
Judge
Ashley.
Lundquist, what?
No problem. I'm sorry, can you repeat it one more time? I heard a few different questions going on.
It is, do you have to swear in a judge for a city for this role?
Oh, that's a great question. I don't think it's legally required, but there's no harm in having a swearing in ceremony if that is something that you would like to do.
We can work with the mayor something for.
You'll have to come
Would
back.
you like to have a swearing in ceremony?
I don't, if it's not required, I do not need a swearing in ceremony. I've seen both, and so I think it's really up to the city, unless you have something in your code or something that requires it, but I didn't see that in
All
your.
seen in the charter.
What-
No, there's nothing that I'm aware of in your charter that requires it, but if you would like to,
Are
a lot of people like to do a swearing in ceremony just for, the ceremony of it. So there's no issue with that.
Yeah, so by courtesy of the bar, is that the oath that you're bound to?
Yes, so technically, as a municipal judge, I'm not required to follow the judicial code of ethics, but I can assure you the bar code of ethics is very stringent. And so the rules of professional responsibility there apply to me in this job. So all the conflict of
Oregon
interest,
Constitution, US
absolutely,
Constitution, The
yes.
things that would be in our oath.
Yes,
Okay.
I believe the city can adopt the judicial code of ethics if they want or require, but generally that's for elected judges, so for county or state judges especially. But in this context, certainly the bar.
Thank you.
You bet.
Any other questions or comments? All right.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Congratulations.
See
Thanks,
you
Judge.
again.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Talk to you soon. See you Monday.
Yes, for sure.
Full steam ahead with court schedule on Monday. So-
Thank you. Thank
Bye
you.
now, thank you.
Have a good night.
Okay, shall we have our audit presentation? Tyler? Okay.
Come on up.
Yeah.
Whoever.
I'll do a brief intro. Tyler Wallace is coming up here as well. But, as you all are aware, State of Oregon requires that an annual audit is conducted for our financial statements. We've engaged for the last 4 years, I think now, TKW as our auditing firm. We are not just a small city with a small scope of audit, so we've got our annual, financial reports that are audited. We also have the Sandy Urban urban renewal agency financial statements that are audited, and then if we expend more than $750,000 in federal funds, we have what's known as a single audit. It's also applicable this year. So we've got Tim Gillette and Colleen Belford here this evening to present sort of a recap of the city's financial audit. There's a PowerPoint, I think, paper presentation that's going around for you to take a look at if you need to.
We're not sharing the slides, right?
We're not. No, we can scan them in and have them in the minutes, but they're just.
I can give you an electronic copy too. I have an electronic copy.
Perfect.
So, yeah.
And with that, I'll turn it over. I'm not sure who's going to take the side, so I'll turn it over to the blue table and let them get
Well,
started.
I'll start and just introduce myself. I'm Tim Gillette, audit partner with Talbot, Corvola, and Warwick, usually just called TKW, as Tyler, we call it that ourselves. So, and with me is Colleen. So, Colleen.
Colleen Belford. I'm the audit senior manager on the job. And I would like to thank you for bringing blue to the table for us today because we like blue at the firm. That's our colors. Thank you for having us tonight. We really appreciate the opportunity to be here and to talk you through the results of the audit and give you our audit opinion, as it were. But the first thing I want to do is thank Tyler Deems and Tyler Wallace for all of the very hard work that they do as part of this audit process. We asked them for a lot of documents and we asked them a lot of questions. The number of emails they get from us every day is just insane. So thank you for letting us take up your time and for doing such an amazing job and being so responsive to all of our requests because we really appreciate it and we couldn't do this without them. So they did a fabulous job. Okay, you should have the financial statements in the packet for today, but what we've given you today is a brief summary of the results of those, so you can have a cheat sheet, as it were. We performed the audit as a remote audit, so all of it was done off-site, and that work really happened in July for our interim testing, and from September through November for our final testing. So we do it in 2 different phases, and that's when the work happened. The city spent $5.2 million in federal funding this year and we had 3 major programs that we audited as part of that. So quite a bit of activity. It's a little bit unusual to have 3 programs that are selected as major. So that was big.
And that's special audits required because it's federal funding, right?
Exactly, exactly. They're compliance audits more than anything else. We issued the annual comprehensive financial report in December 26th, actually, and that went with the URA report as well. And the single audit got issued earlier this month, so they did have a little bit of a different timing. And there were 2 new GASB standards. GASB is the governmental accounting standards board. That was statement number 101, that was compensated absences, and 102, which is certain risk disclosures, really about concentrations and constraints. So both of those were applicable for the city this year, though really 102 didn't have a significant impact for them. As far as the city's financial statements, we issued an unmodified opinion on the financial statements. That is a clean opinion and essentially indicates that the financial statements, in our opinion, are fairly stated in accordance with U.S. generally accepted accounting principles, or U.S. GAAP. That's what you want. That's a good report. And if you look further in the financial statements within the financial section, you'll see the management discussion and analysis. So those are key financial highlights that management takes the time to discuss and identify the key activity, the key balances, and discussions about really what's happening at the city and what's causing changes in those. So that's a really useful and important set of information to review if you want to get a good sense of what's happening at the city. Just after MD&A is the basic financial statements. We're happy to say that there was positive net positions for both governmental activities and for business type activities. So that's a really good position to be in. And that represents the statements themselves as well as the notes to the statements. So the notes provide policies and information about significant balances. Really good, useful information there too. A lot of it is in technical accounting jargon. So yeah, at the very end of the report is the report on compliance and internal control over financial reporting, and that's in accordance with Oregon state regulations. So what laws the state of Oregon has in play that the city needs to follow, and we issue a report on that. As part of that report, we identified over expenditures in both the telecommunications and the urban renewal agency funds. So there was over expenditures there. And we also identified a supplemental budget meeting that happened in June where there was no formal public notice that was issued for the meeting, which is required by ORS 294.471.
Can I have a question on those?
Yeah.
Those, are we gonna be able to ask about, what the over expenditures were in the telecommunications and why they happened? I'm not so much, it was like $907 in the urban renewal agency, but I am curious about that. And then also we have our public meetings notification for the regular June 16th city council meeting. Is that not adequate public notice of this requirement, supplemental budget requirement?
There are really specific requirements by the state of Oregon, specific to budget law and specific to notifications related to when you're going to have budget meetings and what form those notices need to take. So it has to be published in a newspaper for at least so many days before the meeting happens. And it has to be published online if you're going to reference that online. And so there's certain things that need.
So we don't have a newspaper anymore, and that's why I'm asking this question, because some of these requirements, I mean, they're kind of out of date. And
Yeah.
so, we don't, if you don't have a newspaper,
And there are other forms that the notice can take. That was just an example of the most common one that most people do. And so unfortunately,
We'll be working through
okay.
what is an appropriate or acceptable public notice going forward. Don't have that answer right now. We probably need to just confirm that whatever sort of documentation we keep and how we publicize that, will it meet your standards or meet the state standards that you audit us on?
I mean, somebody needs to update their standards.
In the grand scheme of things, this is a pretty
Catch up there.
minor issue. It certainly needs to be noted if
But I am
make something
curious
fine,
about
right?
can anybody speak to the over expenditures on the telecommunications fund, or is that something to be asked later, or what?
So exactly what was purchased, I'm not positive. That would be a question for Greg, but there was some equipment out of the Sandy Net fund that was purchased towards the end of the year. Now, to be clear, there was available fund balance to purchase those things. It was just what was spent was beyond the appropriation. So the appropriate thing for us to do would have been to do a supplemental budget to increase that appropriation. So it's not like their balance went negative. It was that we spent more than what was authorized in the budget process.
Okay.
And I would add, just to piggyback off of that, we did a supplemental budget, obviously, on June 16th. We thought we caught everything that was getting close to that line of what was appropriated. Sandy Net telecommunications / Sandy Net fund, whatever you want to call it. We think we kind of interchange those titles. We just didn't catch that in our internal analysis. So to Tyler's point, no negative fund balance, but just a missed opportunity for us to catch that and bring it to the council.
Thank you.
and the negative fund balances are things that we include within our reporting. And so if there was, then you would see that in the reporting as well, but there weren't, so we didn't have anything in there.
But just before we leave that, just in terms of, so we don't have one of these next year. I understand we missed it. Is there is there an informal internal control that we're putting in place so that we don't miss it next year?
I think, this year's been a little bit of a learning curve for me. I think that as part of our normal procedure and process, as we're going towards the end of the fiscal year, we will go through the financials and make sure that each fund was within appropriation. It was just something that got missed this year. And so I think
Like a spending freeze for staff, so many weeks before the end of the year or something. So that you're tracking everything. that goes
So
through.
we do as kind of part of the approaching year-end process is, start talking to department heads about their departments, if they're getting close to the appropriation, certainly if they're getting close to, running a negative fund balance towards the end of the year. And then we try to manage that into the finish line to land that plane. It was that just piece of it got missed this year. So.
Okay. Thank you.
And from a functional standpoint as well, we leave our books open for 45 days to make sure we accrue expenses in the appropriate fiscal year. So we can do an incredible amount of work in ensuring that we're not going to have any sort of budget violation, but if an invoice comes in, we have to pay it and code it to the appropriate fiscal year. And so there's
So you're not getting check mail either.
I mean, we don't call the post office and say, do you have anything sitting there? We do a big push with all of our vendors to say, make sure you get your invoices in, and we work with the department heads, but occasionally there are things that just don't reach the finance desk timely, and sometimes those can present an issue. But we always are striving towards not having those types of violations.
Okay, any other questions on the city financials? So we also presented or provided an opinion on the Urban Renewal Agency financial statements. The statements come together much the same way as the cities do, so I'll just be more brief in terms of the URA. Our opinion was unmodified, so the same opinion as for the city's financial statements. We did not identify any significant deficiencies or material weaknesses associated with those financial statements. We did identify one over expenditure in the general fund, and that public notice issue is there as well. Okay. The fund report is the single audit report. Oh, yes.
Is that over same story?
Yeah.
Same kind of story?
Same exact summary,
Different purpose.
different purchase, different fund, right? It's the urban renewal instead of the city as a whole. That same concept.
As part of the single audit, we issue a report on internal control over financial reporting and on compliance in accordance with governmental auditing standards. And as part of that reporting, we identified 3 material weaknesses associated with the city's financial statements. Those were over debt and some issues in capital assets, as well as some AR revenue recognition items. Or one revenue recognition item, I should say. We also issued a report on compliance over each major federal program and over internal control on compliance by uniform guidance. We didn't identify any significant deficiencies or material weaknesses as part of that reporting. And just so you know which programs we identified to be major programs, that included the congressionally mandated projects, the water infrastructure and innovation, and formula grants for rural areas and tribal transit program. So WIFIA was part of all of that.
And if I may, in terms that you will probably be more familiar with, the congressionally mandated project is the $1 million EPA grant that we had. Water infrastructure and innovation is WIFIA loan, just federal funding, and then formula grants for rural areas and tribal transit programs is our public transit federal grants that we have to operate the public transit system.
So you're gonna talk about your 3 weaknesses?
We can now.
Is there another slide?
There is another slide, but
Talk about those
not
3
to talk about
weaknesses.
this.
Just kind of an overview of what they were and how we got there and what's
Yeah,
going on
so
in
I
the
think,
future.
And
all those
I don't know if
zeros.
I'm going in the right order, but did they appear in the, so we, on the consent agenda, there is the the corrective action plan, sorry, to talk about those 3 weaknesses and how we plan to, address those moving forward. And so the first one is dealing with recording of outstanding debt. And so what happened with that is I think in it was July or August of 24. So within the fiscal year, we had $1.64 million in a new WIFIA loan. We recorded that those proceeds as, and so we record the cash, we record the revenue to the appropriate account. But our current process is to not record the debt until we make our closing entries at the end of the year. And so that portion, so it's not like the money would just came in and disappeared. It's just that kind of, bookend transaction wasn't recorded at the end of the year. It was just something that I missed. And so as part of the corrective action plan, we're going to implement new practices and procedures to try to start recording those things in real time as we get them. Well, it's kind of fresh in our mind and we're dealing with it. Let's just record it then. And then at the end of the year, it's already in there. We can just check and make sure that everything balances. Part of what's going to enable that to happen is, you know, the new senior accountant position that council approved as part of the budget process. You know, some of the issues and some of the theme you might hear with some of these things is, you know, just the lack of, you know, personnel and resources we have to do some of these more, you know, I'll call them tedious, but time consuming processes. And so, you know, having those additional, you know, that additional, you know, resources will enable us to do more things like that. So it's not just this one. We'll be able to include more practices like that to hopefully set us up in a better position moving forward. The second one had to do with capital assets. So there was a couple issues that you'll find in the report. One was as part of our new, I think it was the full faith and credit debt offering. There was a couple of expenses that were included and capitalized as part of the asset, and those were legal fees and consulting fees that the city incurred as part of getting that, you know, that new loan. The correct treatment was to expense those, but we inadvertently included those when we capitalized the asset. And so the other finding that had to do with capital assets, or the part of that finding, I should say, was we had purchased out of an internal service fund. There was, I wrote it down here. It was there was a window replacement and some fire suppression equipment that got purchased directly out of our internal service fund. The correct treatment is to transfer those funds out of the internal service fund into you know, a different department, and that would be done by, you know, council action generally. And so instead of purchasing out of that fund, it's doing a council action and moving money over the other fund, and we purchase that fund. And so pertaining to capital assets, I'm going to be implementing some new policies and procedures to make sure that those things are reviewed and caught in real time, and hopefully implement some procedures to take a look at what we have as a threshold for capitalizing things to hopefully you know, streamline some of those things that are getting capitalized right now. They're really relatively low dollar amounts. And then the third one, kind of like the first finding that we talked about, but a little bit different. This is to implement internal controls to ensure that total grant proceeds are recorded timely and correctly. So around, I think it was October, there was a reimbursement request for one of our grants. And so when I say October, I mean October 25. So, you know, 3 months after the end of the fiscal year. And then we received those funds, I believe, in November. And so generally the timing of that, we're doing all of our, you know, accruals and our year-end entries and, you know, August and September. And the reimbursement request was made in October. So it didn't get picked up in those accrual and closing entries. But because the expenses were incurred in fiscal year 25, the revenue would correctly be recorded as fiscal year 25 revenue. And so for that, we're going to implement a new policy and procedure that will essentially record the revenue at the time that the reimbursement is made. And so that we'll know when we're making that reimbursement, let's see what, you know, what year those expenses for, and make sure it gets recorded at that time versus just recording it when the cash shows up. And so I believe
So
that.
at the time of the reimbursement request, not for the cap. Okay. That's what you meant when you said reimbursement is the request.
Yeah.
Right. Yep.
So it's still possible though that, you know, if you expended the money like in late May and then July 15th made the reimbursement request, you're still gonna split a fiscal year.
You would, but like I said, you're making the closing entries like, you know, July all the way through like September. And so, And then let's say under this scenario, you made all your closing entries, you think you're good, and then, oh, we have a reimbursement request made in October. That's still, you're still nowhere concluded with the audit by then, and you're gonna pick that up and you're gonna, record that revenue and make any adjustment that you need to make.
And part of that last finding I would just add, is continuing to, maintain a timely relationship with, our consultants who help us manage the various grants and loan programs that we have. We've got a lot of different funding sources for the capital projects we've got going on. I think generally speaking, we've had a great working relationship with the consultant that has helped facilitate either the reimbursement requests and the receiving of those funds, but there was just a timing delay on this one that we could have probably pushed a little harder on to get that reimbursement submitted in a more timely fashion, and then we would have caught it in our normal closing procedure. So there's I don't want to push the blame onto the consultant by any means, that's not my intent, but just a more timely relationship at the end of the fiscal year. We can continue to improve on that.
Okay. So the last comment I have on the single audit is that our report on the schedule of expenditures of federal awards required by uniform guidance, that was fairly presented. So CFA is good. We do have some required communications that we need to give to you as those charged with governance. As we already talked about, there were 2 new GASBs implemented this year, GASB 101 and 102. There will be 2 new GASBs next year, 103 and 104. 103 is financial reporting model improvements, and 104 is certain capital asset disclosure for certain capital assets. So those are coming up. We have new GASBs every year, it seems like. It's very exciting.
Are they effective for this budget year or for the next budget year since coming up? When does it become effective?
I believe it's next year.
So the next budget cycle.
One is next year and one is the year after that.
I think 103 is effective for fiscal years beginning after June 15th, 25. So
Okay.
I think 103 is effective for the year we're in right now. And I think 104 is the year following, my recollection.
We identified 3 different estimates. Those are significant estimates that the city makes assumptions on associated with the balances that appear on the balance sheet. Those are related to depreciation and the useful lives associated with capital assets, the allowance for doubtful accounts, which exists on AR, and essentially how much of AR is collectible, and on the pension liability, as well as deferred inflows and outflows, and exactly how much is going to get paid out as part of the pension that's owed at this point in time. So those are the 3 estimates.
Any concerns with the estimates?
No. Just letting you know that those exist and that some of them may change or may not be exactly perfectly on time.
Well, there's judgment involved.
Yeah.
So you as
Guaranteed to be wrong.
people charged with governance of the city, you want to be aware that those estimates are out there. And if you want to, delve into any of those with the Tylers,
We're happy to talk to you about our
purview
PERS
to do
liability.
that, yeah.
If you'd like to sit down and have that fun conversation. The one thing about that estimate in particular, since we're talking about it, is that there is a certain level of I don't want to say it's wrong, but there's a certain level of judgment and assumptions that go into it, in part because it's a year old, right? It takes PERS a year to do their actuarial assessment. So we're not operating off of a June 30, 2025 number for PERS when we book our June 30, 2025 liability. There's always a year lag time. So there's some, just by default, there's a little bit of an error, margin of error that's built into that calculation. But it's the best information that we can use to make an educated assessment on June 30, 2025.
Well said.
What's that?
Well said. As part of our audit procedures, we identified 4 uncorrected misstatements for the city and 6 audit adjustments. And for the URA, we had no corrected misstatements, but 1 uncorrected misstatement. We didn't identify any difficulties, or we didn't have any difficulties during the audit, and there were no disagreements with management. We didn't, or we're not aware of any consultations that management had with any other accountants. I will say that that independence is the responsibility of both TKW and the city and those charged with governance. So it's the responsibility of everybody. Just so you know.
So there is a separate letter that goes over all of these things that you all should have somewhere in the packets or somewhere.
Appreciate the independence, but we do rely on you and we're very grateful to have you. And this is one of the drier meetings we ever do, but yet, if there was a problem or a fraudulent activity at the city budget level, it would undermine everything we're doing. So it's absolutely critical that our books are in order always. So we appreciate it.
And they do a good job. We, as an audit firm, work for you, those charged with governance, the city council. And so if you ever have any questions for us, if you ever have any concerns, you're welcome to reach out to us and ask us any questions that you might have. On that note.
Follow up, there was like 150 pages of material to review and I take that responsibility seriously as to, try to figure out what's going on and if there is a problem. So it was a little bit difficult to try to, work through all the auditing and accounting terminology and things like that. It would really help next time if we had sort of like in the staff report, kind of that clarification of actually what went wrong that, and most of them are fairly minor and easily correctable. And I'm not trying to cast blame or anything, but just kind of clarification of, a translation, so to speak, of, this violation was regarding,
Cause and effect, root cause, something, right?
right, just kind of a little bit
I
more
agree.
clarity on what it is, because we review the budget and I understand what the expenditures are, like telecommunications. Is that IT or is that the Sandy Net stuff? And just kind of what got bought. I mean, I don't need to know this real specifics, but just how did that happen that, that
Don't make me ask
it
the
went over,
question.
because it was like $800,000. I don't care about $907 much, but for $800,000, it was kind of like a, wow, that's a lot to go over and not, and again, it sounds like we had the money for it already. And so just trying to understand what happened and what's being done to correct it in plain English, so to speak, so that somebody sitting up here understands that, because it was a little bit hard to kind of go from that level to all the stuff in 150 pages as to, because you guys had to put it into the legal framework and we're not, GASB is something I'm not up on, so I appreciate that. Yeah,
I appreciate that. We'll
yeah.
certainly try to incorporate that.
Yeah, okay, great, thank you. Yeah, I appreciate you guys keeping us on our toes and on the straight and narrow. Thank you. Any other questions from anybody?
I'm just gonna say one thing that you said upstairs before this meeting. That we do a lot. I think there was more to that sentence, but the takeaway was we do a lot for a town of 13,000 people. Our audit is big, our programs are big, our capital projects are big. Add any other fluff here if you want to add it, but I think I just want to paint the picture that we're like the little engine that could oftentimes, and that's always been Sandy, but it's certainly the case today
Right now,
still,
what
just
we're
because
doing, yeah.
always has
It
been.
also means our risk is big of any indiscretion is horribly amplified. So.
Yeah.
We have a lot of, loans and grants and all that, and big capital projects that are very complex and multi-staged and all that. So it is a huge undertaking for such a small town and small staff that we have.
You are not a huge city, but you are a complex city, which is part of the issues that we deal with in auditing. And that 150 pages of, I always say this, Colleen, those are your financial statements. I mean, the Tylers put those together. We audit them, but they're your statements. So we give you our opinion on it.
Yeah. Thank you.
We tell you where we find errors or corrections or or minor things that aren't worth correcting, but
Very good. Thank you. Thank you for coming.
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here in person.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for
Thank
having
you.
us.
Pass on thank yous to the rest of the team that you work with. And
Will do.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it.
Thank you all for your help.
Thank you.
Good job, I think.
Sure, thank you.
So I assume we can do now the consent agenda? Is
Thank you, Jeff.
that right?
Thank you. Those are cool too.
Our consent agenda has the meeting minutes from January 5th, a purchase authorization for the pavilions for Mining Park renovation to the tune of, I believe, $400,000, and a audit corrective action plan for fiscal year 2025. Are there some questions about that?
I just wanted to, just as part of my role as non-festival committee liaison, they have asked that anytime there is something happening with mine, that I let them know, like, hey, this is on the agenda. And so there was some discussion back and forth about, hey, we have some questions here. And so I sent those questions to Tiana and to Tyler, and those were answered. I think there were some follow-up questions. Those were all answered. And I think, Lisa, you would say that you're more comfortable, that your questions were answered and to what you felt necessary.
Definitely, do you want me to just
What questions?
introduce myself and?
It's just some
Sure,
questions.
you can come up and let us know. I mean, I am curious because we had that big field trip and we thought everything was kind of done, and now we're ready to, we have bids and we're ready to issue the contract. So now's not the time to start.
But hold on,
Yeah, but I don't think
there is
that's the
always a
case.
time. There is always a time. There is always a time until the vote is final that people can ask questions and discuss. So I think we're well within our rights to have this discussion and just to have all those questions answered. And I think Tiana did a beautiful job. But Lisa, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself.
Definitely.
I apologize. If I may, I might suggest that you take this particular topic off the consent agenda just to formally allow a bit more of a conversation.
It's a good point.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
I'll note it that way.
Okay, so we are taking this agenda item off the consent agenda and we're going to treat it as a regular agenda item. So let's go ahead and
Continue.
Well, I would suggest then perhaps a vote on the rest of the consent agenda. and then
Okay.
We can move on.
all right.
Well, then you have to sit down and he's stand back up.
Just very quickly.
Okay, sorry.
You can stay there.
You're fine.
Okay.
I'll make a motion that we accept the consent agenda minus the Mining Memorial Park Pavilion vendor proposal.
Yeah, motion to accept the consent
I'll
agenda
second.
minus the mining park renovation item. All those in favor vote aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. All right.
Thank you for that.
Yep. Okay, come on.
Sorry, and it was not my intention to make this a bigger deal, but I
That's
do
okay.
think that if there's questions, yeah. I should have just asked to take it off the consent agenda earlier. My apologies.
Okay, I'd like to introduce myself, Mayor Walker, and council members. I'm Lisa Snyder, President of Sandy Mountain Festival. We have been working with Tiana and everybody in the city on the changes to Mining Park. And trust me, we are fully on board with everything. We think that the changes are going to benefit both the city as well as the festival, and we're quite excited. A couple of questions that came up. And but we've got clarification now from Tiana. She was amazing. She took all of our questions that Lindy had forwarded to her and answered them quite in depth. So we really appreciate that. Our concerns were, my gosh, can't those current pavilions, can't they just be refurbished? They fit in so well, but Tiana did explain that they have been refurbished along and upgraded and stuff, but now it's time to build new. So we totally understand that. And then talking to Tyler just before the board meeting tonight, he had explained some things too. We were concerned because I was like, oh my gosh, that's a lot of money for those small pavilions, $100,000 and some $1,000 for the largest one. And we're like, wow, can't they be done any cheaper? But Tiana there again had said, there's a lot to it. It's not just putting up a structure. There's permits. There's making sure that, the codes are followed and all of that. So no, it was just, oh my gosh, can't there be money saved someplace? That's what the festival's thought was. And railings, the railings weren't exactly conducive, at least on the one for one of our food vendors. But then Tiana also said, we have to think of safety for people that are going to be there outside of Mountain Festival. So it was just a combination of different things. And we really appreciate Lindy being the liaison to the festival. She's always been able to take our questions back to city staff and get those questions answered. So that was pretty much the main thing. We just had a few little concerns, but thankfully Tiana was able to understand where we were coming from and get those questions answered. And then also Tyler, I was like, oh my gosh, I just want to confirm that this is not going to happen before Sandy Mountain Festival. And Tyler reassured me that it's not. I mean, day after festival's over, the changes are going to start happening, but it's okay. As long as we know it's status quo for this festival, I think we're good. So
Were you at the field review that we did with everybody?
I did. I was, yes.
Yeah.
I had to leave a little early, but
Okay.
yes, no. And I think it went really
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
And all of the board that was there at that time really felt confident that
Yeah.
the changes are going to be good.
Yeah.
And it's not really going to affect festival like we initially thought it was.
Mhm.
So yeah, no, everybody's on board. They're
You all
quite
had some
pleased.
really good ideas at that field
Yes.
trip.
I have a great team.
Yeah, yeah. But and we're kind of just starting this, but as we proceed with any future facility changes at Mining Park, I think it's really helpful to kind of understand our process so that, we do this kind of conceptual planning and then more site-specific planning. And then once that's all approved, and that's hopefully when y'all are kind of giving your input about railings or structures or anything like that, then once that's all approved by us, then it's time to kind of then go out and get bid. We kind of Tiana puts together a scope of work for what we want built, and that's when we go in and get bids. And so then awarding the bids I'm not saying that we couldn't make changes, but that's not ideal to make changes at this point because we've already invested all this the input. So just trying to understand the process that the city goes through to get to that point. We
Yes.
really want your input early on and as much as possible. They were excellent comments that you guys gave at the field trip. And, I think we're all interested in collaborating to make it
Yes.
successful for all of us. So, yeah.
Yes.
it's
No,
just-
it
yeah.
was a great walk through the park. Everybody was quite pleased. And so, yeah, we're good. It was that cost. It's like, oh my gosh, that's a lot of money for something that's so
Tyler,
small.
I
but-
know the same thing to
It
Tyler.
is sort of renovation these days. It's going through that sticker shock.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that was the biggest concern in all the comments was the pricing that we don't get until these bids come out. So that is all brand new information that they wouldn't have had in the walkthroughs and they wouldn't have had in those other meetings or when we were looking at the scope. So that is all new.
And I asked the same question to Tyler, he can vouch for that, because I am used to kind of a DIY, we've had volunteers, we've had Kiwanis, we've had other folks kind of help build structures for us. And so it could be done cheaper and all, but there's kind of pros and cons to when we're working with ADA and a lot of other things. And then you need somebody from the staff to be able to oversee all the projects and the volunteers and all that. That's not a free thing either. So
No.
I also reacted to the sticker shock and said, well, wait a minute, we can, DIY it. But there's time for that for certain things and maybe not always. So, and it is, I think the structural stuff that we're going to get with the ROMTEX is very good because we've seen it in some of the other structures we've had and I've seen it, the other parks in the other cities, they do a really good job. So
Do they? That's
yeah.
great.
Great. Thank you though. Appreciate
You're welcome.
guys
Thank you.
coming out and giving
Thank
us
you.
input.
Mayor, since this is not on consent any longer, I would like to just give Tiana a quick opportunity to add anything that we haven't discussed or recap, just to make sure we're not missing any pieces or other points that she'd like to make. Sorry to put you on the spot, Tiana.
I think everything's pretty well covered, but if there are any lingering questions, I'm happy to address any of those.
Okay. Any questions, comments?
The staff report doesn't clarify whether Sura is paying for this or our city budget. Does it need to be clear in our motion?
It does not. So there's funding sources. Well, I'm sorry, Tiana, do you want to answer that question or do you want me to keep talking?
Some of these structures will be grant eligible for the LGDP grant. Initially, we probably will code these to SURA due to the location within the park and what part of the park projects are able to be funded out of SURA. And then we will be reimbursed by the grant, and how those funds are distributed, I will work with the Tylers on where the reimbursement funds.
I like the group. You're like a group. the
We're like an
Tylers.
official team now, the Tylers.
She's-
Yeah, so our intent is to,
Do we,
frankly, protect park SDC dollars as much as possible because there are so many competing future
no, I don't
projects.
understand. I'm
So
just wondering if we're even the right entity to vote on this.
We already approved the overall budget for this project,
Right.
not just the mining, but the phase one project.
Right, but I see you're saying if this money's coming out of SURA, then
It would have to be
then
a
it's
SURA
vote.
board to authorize the expenditure. That's why I'm asking.
I mean, I think, well, Ashley may have a different opinion. The city is designating me to sign the purchase agreement and move forward with the purchase. That purchase,
The
it's
nuance.
all coming out of the same pot of money and you're all the same governing body. So
Okay, all right.
I think in some cases, I think I would probably feel differently, like if it was an urban renewal specific project only coming out of urban renewal. This is a multi-tiered purchase that has 3 different funding sources.
As the budget is not identified in the motion, I'm okay.
I have a motion language there. If somebody would like to make a motion.
I'll move to authorize the city manager to execute a purchase order for 3 owner-provided and installed pavilions for the Mining Park renovation project in an amount not to exceed $400,974 as included in the meeting packet.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a motion from Counselor Henley and a second from Counselor Ramsayer to approve the Mining Park renovation project structures as worded in the motion. All those in favor vote aye.
Aye.
Opposed, vote nay. Motion passes. Thank you. Thank you, Tiana.
Thank you.
Tiana.
Thank you, Lisa.
Have a good evening.
Two. Okay, back to the agenda and
Made her sing out to the.
contract award for the Revenue Avenue, it's hard to say, Revenue Avenue Reservoir, treatment improvements.
Thank you. Thank you. Dive right in.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody, for having me here tonight. Start off with a brief recap for some of the council that wasn't here when we made previous decisions, and it's been a while since we made these decisions, so we'll talk through them. Initially, our connection to Portland's new filtration facility was slated as a single project. We were gonna build a pump station, build a pipe, bring it to the city of Sandy. Simple as that. One factor that came into play early on was we need to get land use for the pump station itself on the Portland site, creating a timeline issue with our bilateral compliance agreement, which is our need for filtered water from Bull Run. In order to try to get things done more quickly, we ended up splitting this project into 3 separate segments. One of them being the transmission main that they're currently building on Bluff Road up by Proctor. One of them being the pump station itself, and then the one we're talking about tonight, which is the dechloramination portion of the project. So Portland's water is switching from free chlorine to chloramines. Basically, simplified version, it's chlorine and ammonia put together. We cannot mix that simply with our water, so we need to remove the chloramines from the Portland water or add chloramines for the rest of our system. The decision was made to basically remove the chloramines. Some iterations went through for design to determine what that would be. At the end of the day, we decided that breakpoint chlorination would be the most cost-effective option for this site. And so we've added that in we've completed design, completed bid for adding dechlorination to the Revenue Avenue Reservoir site.
So this dechlor, is it also rechlorinated as well?
Exactly.
It's
So
both, right?
So simply put, we add enough chlorine to break the ammonia and the chlorine apart. And what we're left with is a little bit of free chlorine that we have control over.
Okay, so what comes out into the rest of the city water system is the same chlorinated water we have today.
Exactly. And it'll actually be less chlorinated than the water we are currently getting from Bull Run, which is, since it needs to go so far with free chlorine, which degrades faster than chloramines, it's pretty hot effectively when it comes into the city of Sandy. So the water now that'll be coming out of Revenue Reservoir will be lower chlorine content than what we have currently.
It'll taste better too.
Yes. And so for this project, we had 8 bidders. Let me open up my spreadsheet here. We had 8 bidders come in. The minimum bid, as you saw, was RL Reimers at $1.35 million. Our engineer's estimate for the project was 1.41, so we're doing pretty good there so far. Our budget amount was approximately 1.46 or 7. I apologize. Should have wrote that down. But either way, we're coming in with a good bid. The bids that came in, the first 3 bids were within $21,000 of each other. So on a project of this size, those are great bids. It continues to show our design teams and a good bidding environment. So all I'm asking for is, oh, Jeff, could you pop up that plan for me, please?
What, are you doing that?
Yeah.
So chemically, we're releasing free ammonia. How is it captured and going to be managed?
Basically, it becomes a very small disinfection byproduct of the water like we have already.
The ammonia?
The ammonia does, yes. So it is no longer, the ammonia
Is it-
breaks apart. Basically.
Because it breaks it apart,
Yeah.
but it's not becoming a gaseous, it's
No.
going to stay in the water.
It basically becomes microscopic particulate.
It's not filtered, it's not got rid, it's broken out. Thank you.
And just for a quick visual here of what we have actually being constructed on this site. If you can see the left side of the plan set here, the rectangular area, the lighter portion is the building itself, which will house our chlorine storage. And we've also moved on the east side of it, so the right side of the drawing there, we've moved the generator inside. So when that generator needs to be run, or if it's just being tested, it's actually quieter for the neighborhood. There's some minor work to be done for just moving power around on site, moving the gas connection around on site. The major piping pieces are going to be effectively where that large W is on the plan set there. That is where the chlorine will be injected into the water as it comes from Portland. And then it goes into our reservoir. And as you can see, we've added a mixing system, which is that pipe running through the middle of the reservoir, or we will be adding a mixing system, which is the pipe running through the middle of the reservoir, which allows the water that's coming in with the free chlorine now break down that chloramine and mix around in the tank properly, so it doesn't just short circuit its way out. And that way, the water that comes out, we have control over it. And then one final portion of this is we are intending to add a 4th pump into the pump station, which is the lighter gray rectangle that's a little closer to the reservoir itself, which will bring it up to its full capacity so that we can use, if there ever is a scenario where we need to use a lot of Portland's
Can you
water.
clarify
we're
that?
capable
You
of
said
doing
it says existing transfer pump station.
Yes.
There's another pump station where they?
Not another pump station, but there is a slot to put another pump in there,
Mhm.
which gives us more pumping capacity out of that pump station.
So it's
Do we need that?
redundancy in the case we lose Alder Creek or one to run out or something. We
Exactly,
can backfill with city.
exactly.
So we need that extra pump station or an extra pump in this?
It gives us the.
I want to answer,
It-
ask, I'm sorry, Don, I'm gonna ask
It,
AJ.
it gives us enough pumping capacity that if, as Don just mentioned, if Alder Creek were to be lost for some reason, say we had a major wildfire and could not produce clean water out of Alder Creek, it allows us to pump enough water to supply the city through the Portland water source.
I think that I'm gonna just kind of keep starting asking more questions about is this whole belts and suspenders approach to how we do everything. And I'm all about getting backups, but backups on each site are not necessarily the only option. I'm gonna be saying, what about, we can bring in extra pumps when we have an extra pump down at the, at various places that we could utilize if we needed for an emergency. Building all those pumps as backups at each site seems belts and suspenders, because then those things don't get used all the time, or, you kind of have to use them, a little bit. You instead of using 3 pumps, you use 4 pumps. And so again, all those things, all those belts and suspender approaches cost us more money. And that's where I'm feeling like, we don't need belts and suspenders. And if we can do something with a backup pump that is able to be used in more than one site, or, or 2 backup pumps to cover our bases, I'm going to just suggest that we try to look at those options as much as possible, rather than what I've been seeing over the whole, subcommittee oversight is just a lot of on-site backup stuff that I'm not sure that that's not adding to our increased costs. So I'm just going to ask that we be keeping that in mind and really reviewing that.
Okay, I hear everything you're saying, and if I could respond to that quickly. One factor is the pump station is already set up to handle another pump. So basically we remove some flanges and drop this thing in place. The manifolds and everything are already there. It's not a major construction adder. It's bringing this pump in, setting it on site. I really like the idea of having mobile backups that we could just drop into different places. Unfortunately, the configuration of each pump station that we have has its own separate kind of entity where we will, like, we could not take a pump from down at Hudson and just drop it in up here at Revenue, because the sizes are different, the shapes are different. It would be more expensive to be able to build, basically have like a Lego set of pumps where we could bring them in and put them all together on site there.
I get that.
As far as the belt and suspenders, and I totally hear that, but we are still at high risk of wildfires, as we've seen more and more often up at Alder Creek, and the risk of losing water completely or having to do extreme curtailment for a scenario like that is something we can avoid for a fairly small amount of money at this time. Whereas if we have somebody bring it in later on, it will cost us more than it is at this point. But I do hear you and I understand.
Are you gonna let me talk now?
Yeah, if you want to be
So I've been
recognized,
on
sure.
been on the committee for a long time, and part of the early discussions we had to do with what do we get out of a Bull Run connection as a city? We're gonna pay a lot of money for it. What does it give us? And one of the things that potentially does give us is the complete ability to back up our water supply for the entire city in the event we lose one of our major problems. And wildfires, heavy runoff.
Pump failure.
Well, right now, I mean,
It's all been updated.
there's a single line coming from Alder Creek that's, we don't even know how old and hasn't been scoped yet. So I mean, there's plenty of opportunities for single failures in the short term. And so this has just been something we've been working towards all along. And I'm not sure I exactly know what belt and suspenders is, but I'm guessing that it has to do with unneeded extra cost. I don't want to be short-sighted and skip something that would have been a very useful thing, to where if one of these events happens, and we're just talking about an N-1 event, just one event, not like a cascading set of events happening. One event happens, we are going to need that pump. To me, this isn't optional. We have engineering, good engineers, that's what we hired them for. This is what they're recommending. I don't like constantly second guessing them. And I don't like being cut off when I have something valid to add to the conversation.
Look, I'll respond to that. First of all, when I ask a question, I'm asking a question of our staff. They presented something, I have a question about it, I want my staff to answer. I know that you may know the answer, but I want to hear it from the staff because I will tell you that you've answered something that I found out later was incorrect. And that makes it awkward for our folks to then correct that for me. And I don't get the right answer, so I'm annoyed. So I would appreciate it if, when I ask a question, that I get the answer from them. And that's happened now several times, and That's kind of where that's why I was a little short with you. So I apologize if you took it wrong. The whole belts and suspenders thing has to do with, yeah, when it's needed, for backup, and that's the only way to get it. That's certainly what we have to do. I'm not questioning that. I was aware of the, benefit for the Bull Run connection all along. And yeah, I agree with all you're saying. What I'm saying though is that also our rates, people are screaming about the rates and the costs that we've had to incur. We may not be able to do all the things that we want to do to the standard that we want to do with all full backup right now. We may have to kind of ramp that. I mean, maybe it's appropriate to kind of ramp some of that up. And I don't mean, spend money unnecessarily. I don't think questioning them about this, but the double line to going to 26, that's an example of where, yeah, that's a great thing to have a backup, but it's also $25 million extra money, and we never discussed that. So I'm getting off topic there for the wastewater stuff, but I am going to continue to ask the questions. And, that's what my job is here, is to kind of try to get these rates down to as much as possible, to question,
People
to
got
ask the
rates
hard
down in
questions,
past
and you don't have
councils.
to agree with me, but I appreciate that you don't agree with me. I really do, Don, because you ask hard questions too. But we don't have to agree. I will be asking those hard questions because I believe that's what our ratepayers want us to do, is to make sure that we're not spending money unnecessarily. And I'm not questioning their integrity or their expertise or anything like that. I don't know half of what AJ knows about all this. I rely on him, but I also expect him, to be able to answer those questions about why that's needed. Because, it has come up. You guys do have portable pumps that you can kind of move around to deal with emergencies. So that's why I asked the question. I'm not questioning, whether we made the right decision here. I'm just saying that, since I've heard that before, that that these pump breakdowns can be alleviated in many cases with a portable pump or whatever. That's why I asked the question. So, thank you very much, Don. Do you have some other questions about the whole project or other comments for me?
Well,
Great,
ready to
thank you. I
approve it.
appreciate your expertise and your interest and passion about this. I really do. So, all right. Any other questions with this project? Great. We have a suggested motion language there to authorize the construction contract with RL Reimers. Anybody want to make that motion, please?
I move to authorize the city manager to execute a construction contract with RL Reimers Company for the Revenue Avenue Reservoir Treatment Improvement Project for a maximum total fee of $1,359,463.
Can I have a second, please?
I'll second it.
I have a motion from Councilor Sheldon and a second from Councilor Hokinson to approve the construction contract with RL Reimers in a maximum total fee of $1,359,463. All of those in favor, please vote aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, vote nay. Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, AJ.
Thanks, AJ.
Have a great evening.
Okay, report from the city manager.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. I'm going to defer the first few minutes of my report over to Nellie and see if she has anything she wants to share about the upcoming short session or any other topics. Nellie, are you with us?
Give her
She's
just 10
migrating over.
seconds. Yeah.
And while she's coming online, can you put that as a standing agenda item? Because
I just made a note for
Yeah,
myself. too.
she doesn't show up on my TV screen, so I don't want to forget her, but
Yep.
if it's not on my agenda list, I do at this late part of the hour.
Hey, Nellie, do you have anything you'd like to share this evening about the upcoming short session or anything else?
Not sure.
Yes, sorry. 2 seconds. Okay, sorry. The blurry background's not great. So we have a lot of ground to cover, and I think that there are some serious conversations that we can be having tonight. about what to do for February. So as we all know, the financial situation is not great in Salem. And so we are a bit worried about that. Uh, but Christine Drazen's office, your senator, reached out to us and said that it made sense for us to apply for the same amount of money that we applied for last session in the long session. So that's another $10 million. Basically what we need to figure out is if that's something that we want to do, or if we're being tone deaf, given the fact that the money situation is not great. I'm all ears in terms of what all of you are thinking. My personal recommendation is if she's saying we should go for it, it doesn't hurt to go for it and then say, basically, this is our story and it keeps us at the top of the agenda in the legislature. But it's definitely going to be a tough ask. Let's just start, especially because originally, sorry, let me back up. When the governor came out and said that she was opposed to the transportation package that she originally supported, we had that going for us in terms of that money. But now that there's a 1935 law that might not allow us to go that route. Sorry, this is way into the weeds. I apologize. But essentially, it's complicating things in terms of actually being able to get that $10 million.
So Nelly, can I interject here real quick?
Please.
I think we asked for 14 in the long session and we were awarded 5. So it makes sense to ask for just that difference. But to your point, I don't want to leave money on the table, but I also don't want to be tone deaf. And so is there a kind of a sweet spot, like a single digit in the millions, and as opposed to a double digit, and recognizing that we did get something in the last session. This is just kind of rounding out our ask.
Yes, I am going to follow up with Drazen's office tomorrow. I was in touch with Dylan Amo. He's kind of taking on board. He's taking charge of the financial ask. I think that whatever Drazen's ask is, I would probably recommend that we go for, and I'm going to say that that's probably going to be 9, 10-ish. I know that's I realize how what that sounds like, but it's at this point, it's just a matter of negotiating the politics of it all, and it's really precarious right now.
Well, I think, Nelly, we've talked about it a little bit at my one-on-one meeting with Tyler today, and I did think that, since we asked for 14 and we got 5, 9 million seems like a good sweet spot to kind of say, hey, everybody else got 5 too, but their ask was, 1/3 or less of what, we have to pay for. So, that said, though, I figure if Drazen is willing to kind of support our ask and we could get the support of everybody else, at a minimum, it just keeps us in front of people's, in front of their attention that we have a problem that we need money to pay for. And we have the utility rates that we've had to increase and all the same arguments that we used before. Those are still there. 5 million didn't put a big, huge dent in that. So we do need to kind of just, keep up the pressure. And I feel like, unless that's a bad strategy in that, we may lose support in the long run for the next legislative session or, or upset people, make them mad about us asking for it. I don't want to make anybody mad or lose support overall for Sandy, but I also kind of feel like, you cannot win if you do not ask kind of approach. So can you give us some thoughts on the
You basically, Mayor, you basically said everything that's been going through my head because I think that we may as well ask for it, but it is, we are walking a fine line of negotiating the fine line that is, this is, we are a state that is not run by Republicans, and our district is Republican. And we want to make sure that we do not anger people by asking for money that may or may not be available. And it was, I don't want Sandy to become a pawn for a political gain for someone running for governor. I'm being as honest as I can be right now, and sorry. But I also don't really see a huge negative ask in that we just show that this is what we need and we're still asking for it. And it keeps us at the front, the front of the line in terms of this is what we're ultimately going to need.
Is there opportunities to get more Democratic support?
I do think so. Yes. I mean, I think it's just us asking for more action is not going to hurt. I just think that the fine line, I think I would recommend that we talk to Drazen's office in terms of the exact dollar amount before the end of the month. I think we have 10 days. So we're cutting it a little close, but we can figure it out. I know. But I think that it's a matter of balancing it and showing like, hey, this is what we ultimately really need. And literally letting them know that, I mean, we're obviously not going to ask for 200 million, but this would help us if we can build a good case for what this would help us gain. If we're not able to get it in February, it's still building the bridge to get us to the next session to actually ask for that money.
Other thoughts?
$10 million still isn't going to do anything. But I mean, I don't see any reason not to ask for at least 10. I mean, that's just my thought. It's chump change. For states that doesn't have any money, it's still chump change. And I mean, I don't see any harm. That's just my opinion though.
One thing is, so it was in my notes to talk about from C4, but the last meeting they discussed, they had some reps there but all the cities around discussed on what their asks would be. And we would, judging from what was shared, nobody else is asking for anything because of this, right? So I guess my point is, perhaps it's an opportunity with less asks in the queue to maybe rise a little more to the top. I mean, at the end of the day, while it's chump change for the state, it would absolutely affect our rates long term and our project long term. And I want us to make sure that we can straight face say that we're doing right for our citizens. And if that happens to be a pawn in the governor race, then if it benefits our citizens, it would be benefit.
We can't control that.
We can't control it.
They're
It's
gonna
fun
use
with that.
us as a cover story.
We need the money regardless.
We need the
right?
money, yeah.
Right, yep.
So I'll just add, and Nellie, you and I haven't had a chance to connect today. But it sounds like you're going to reach out to Senator Drazen tomorrow. Drazen's office, excuse me, reached out to me to schedule a meeting next week as part of her sort of tour, for lack of a better word, or meeting with all the cities that are in her district. So she is going to be here at City Hall Tuesday, the 27th at 9:30 a.m. Any elected official is welcome to attend. So I know that's in the middle of the workday. It's kind of the cards that we have here, but if any of you are interested in swinging by City Hall at 9:30 on Tuesday, just to talk about potential opportunities and how we go forward into the short session, she's all ears. I think it, depending on what Nellie gets out of a conversation later this week, it's another opportunity for us to really hone in on what's a reasonable number to ask that she can get behind and support before we edge up against that 30th deadline for any funding request. So just planting that seed.
Would you send out a calendar
Yeah,
thing
I
just
will.
so that at least it can be there, and if we can make it, make it. If not, not.
And that'll actually be great because if we get 4 counselors, I'll just notice it as a meeting, whatever, that's fine.
I will say that if there is anyone that knows for a fact they can make it, if you could let me know, so I can just confirm that. Like, if there's anyone that says, yes, I know next Tuesday I'm free, so I can shoot Drazen's office an email and let her know that we'll have at least one,
I'll
two,
be
three. I see 2 that are yeses, so I'll just let her know we've got at least 2 electeds that are available.
So 9 o'clock?
9:30.
9:30.
I have a question. Is there
Yeah, I
anything?
think that will be a very important meeting. And I mean, between now and then, there is going to be a lot going on. Especially with the transportation package in jeopardy as it is. It's going to be interesting to see what the legislature does in an effort to counterbalance that. I don't even know what other way to put it, but if that goes down, which is likely to happen by a vote of the people, and after Tina Kota came out and said that it was going down, I mean, there's a lot of that's a significant amount of money in flux. The problem is this 1935 law that is coming up in the background. So we just have to see what happens with that.
Nellie, is there anything to be said for, I mean, people not asking, but we need to, I feel like we need to continue because these are not projects that we can put off. Like these are still requirements. This is still how much it costs regardless. So I think if we keep towing the line and like, this is actually what we have to, we need it. Is there anything to be said for that approach? Like, you're right, these guys are trying to build a park, or these guys are trying to build something else that can be put off. We legally can't put this off.
Yeah, Counselor, I completely agree with everything that you said. I think that there is nothing wrong with us saying this needs to happen. I mean, and I think emphasizing, how many cars you have coming through Sandy every single day. I mean, 50,000, that's a lot. I mean, you guys are dealing with so much pressure. It's a story. It's something that is relatable to legislators. It would be helpful if we got some new ones. But I think that it's I don't see harm in asking.
One thing to that point, when she keeps talking about the 1935 law and all of that, in the near future, it doesn't have to be tonight or something. I would like some more education on that because people don't see. They see this as like a grant. Why aren't we applying for grants? Why aren't we doing more of that, right? They don't draw the differentiations between those. And so just educational pieces on why things are the way they are is super helpful.
Are you looking?
Yeah, no, I'm happy to provide you with more information, and I apologize. I don't think I did a good enough job explaining. The 1935 law actually has to do with the governor's ability to say she didn't want the transportation package. So it's has really nothing to do with anything Sandy could have done. But I can get you some more information on that. It's just, and I apologize for, I get into the weeds on these things because I'm such a nerd. But
My 1935 law is that once so Tina Kotek proposed it, there was a voter referendum that basically said, absolutely not, we want to be able to vote on it. And because it went to that level, now it can't be repealed.
yes, Tina Kotek did not,
Can't change mine.
she supported it. She didn't, like, write the bill, but yes, you're correct.
Counselor Sheldon, are you wanting that just for information to be shared with the council, or are you looking at like
However you want to,
PR?
I don't care if, I think it's information so that we can provide PR, we can answer questions on why things are the way they are.
I can,
I understand the scope of
Yeah,
it too.
no, I know you do.
I just, as this is strategized, I want to have especially if we decide not to make an ask, which I think I'm hearing consensus that we would. But if we decided not to, it would be really good to be able to explain the why behind that.
Yeah. And I only provide clarification because there was some questioning eyes on this side of the dais, so I just wanted to make sure that.
So the recall, or the referendum, so thank you.
It's okay.
When would the vote happen on that?
November.
that wouldn't happen until November. The only change that would happen with that, so if Tina cannot, in fact, have the legislature undo the transportation package, it would go to a vote in November of the people, which means they can't collect the taxes from that until November, the November vote. And if that goes down, then they won't ever collect those taxes.
So what would be the February session? What would it be about if it wasn't the?
Well, if Tina could have
Gotta come up with a funding.
recalled everything and it was all already undone, that money would still be available. But the problem is that now that money that we saw as available, because Tina came out and said she wasn't going to do it, is no longer available because of a 1935 law, is kind of the Cliff Notes version.
Now they're just trying to kind of figure out how much money they will have and what can go forward.
Yes. So it's very unclear. We're in very uncharted territory right now. And I wish I had more information to provide you, and I'm sorry, but this is all new.
Are there any other projects that did not go forward? I know I kind of heard from you last time, or somebody told me about, I think they had originally vetoed or something about the Kate Brown, Willamette Falls, all that kind of stuff, and that was 40 million up for grabs or something, but that's been reallocated or
that did not get vetoed. So Kate Brown got the 40.
So are there any other projects out there that got pulled that freed up any additional funding?
Unfortunately, no.
Thank you.
So long story short, do we have consensus?
Cannot win if you do not play.
Your consensus to make an ask with what is palatable or advised by Senator Drazen when we meet her. Is that what I'm
Provided
picking up?
somewhere around the 10 million.
Provided it's
Right,
around, yeah.
right.
Now, if she comes
Yeah.
back and says 2, then yeah, maybe no.
That's a
Yeah.
good caveat. In my mind, I was going in that 9-10 ballpark.
Yeah.
Well, there's a price for putting this campaign out.
The 10 million was what was kind of recommended. That was ahead of all of the news that came out with this law. So for now, I would recommend that, but I think that if her office comes back with something different, perhaps that might be the direction we want to go. but it's a
Now,
good starting point.
do we know when the capital funding request forms will be due?
I believe it's the 30th.
It is definitely the
January?
30th.
Yes.
That's why
So
Christine's
the
coming out here on
meeting's
the
the
27th.
27th, yeah. So we'll decide, I mean, I would like to ask her, does 9 sound, more achievable than 10? But, yeah, or what does she think? So, okay.
I think we should have some more information in the next 24 hours, and I can make sure that I will share it with Jeff and Tyler, and they can share it with you. But I think we should have some more information from our office tomorrow. I think that everyone's still trying to let the dust settle and figure out what's going on. So
Great.
Can I ask her a shifting gears question?
Yeah, go for that.
So in the same meeting, some state elected person said that there was in the short session, somebody proposing legislation to help fix some of this ethics commission stuff. Do you know anything about that or what that's around?
I can get you more information on that. What specifically related about ethics commission?
It was in regards to the was it the serial meetings?
Serial
Yeah,
meetings,
all
yeah.
of that.
Oh, yes. Sorry.
And then
Sorry. Yes.
all of it.
Sorry. Yes, no, I can get you some more information on that. I think that the general consensus is that that's going to be 2027, but let me confirm that. I can get you that information.
Waiting around till 2027 to fix something that's so impactful to our ability to operate at a local control level is really frustrating. They're not taking this serious, that what they've done is created this problem and they're not owning it.
Or that's what they wanted.
Or that's their intent and, I don't know.
They're tying our hands.
Well, the other problem in all of this is that it's 35 days, and I mean, Peter Courtney created this entire special short session to amend the budget and to fix the budget, and it's turned into how do we get more money? How do we fix everything that's broken in our state? And it's not 35 days is honestly really hard to kind of figure it all out. And so I don't think that Peter Courtney's original ask for all of this is useful, but we're trying to get as much as we can get done in that short amount of time.
So there was some information in the League of Oregon Cities bulletin that went out on Friday about this specific topic. The short version that I can quickly pull up, and we'll dive into this more, but discussed but not formally introduced are 3 concepts addressing open meetings, executive sessions, and the ability of public officials to accept food from their agencies. Conversations on changing open meetings guidelines are ongoing, and those concepts will be introduced when negotiations are finalized.
That's the only one that get resolved. The result
Like
yeah, the one that doesn't matter.
Which means it's going to be 2027 because bills were due January 16th.
Fair enough. Thank you. Yeah, the person that said it just said that another legislature had introduced or was introducing something. They didn't have the details, so that's what I was looking for. So thank you.
Yeah, no, sorry. It's likely not going to be resolved in 2027, unfortunately. And I realize the hardship that puts on you. And I think that when we go into our meetings asking for money, these are conversations we can be asking.
Well, at least be able to have dinner.
That's the important thing, right?
I mean, yeah, it's more the.
Yeah, details.
And I don't even believe that has to be a legislative fix. I think that's more of a come to Jesus meeting with the ethics commission interpretation group. So that's my 2 cents. Okay, thank you very much, Nellie. Is there
Thank you,
anything
Nellie.
else to share with us?
That's all I have. Thank you for your time, and I hope you guys are all doing well in 2026.
Will you be there on the 27th?
be here?
Not physically, but I will be here remotely.
Okay, all right, very good, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So just dovetailing off, well, can I slide into my,
Yep,
my
go for
report
it.
now?
Run with
So
it.
dovetailing off of that, we'll send out a calendar invite to make sure that's on all of your calendars for next week. Wanted to just say thank you to Tyler Wallace briefly. You know, he came in and we were knee deep into the budget process, and he kind of had to dive feet first into that and get acclimated with all of our budget procedures. And then as soon as that wrapped up, we had about a 10-day break before we kicked off audit. And that has lasted many, many moons. But I just wanted to say thank you to him for you know, jumping in and learning the ropes and answering the questions and pulling the documents and working with the auditors and really taking the lead on that. So thank you, appreciate it. Today is my 11-year anniversary. So I just noticed that today and thought, hey, that's neat. So
Wedding?
no,
City?
city employment here. Sorry. Yeah, I guess I didn't clarify that well. So that's not really a relevant topic, but I just stumbled upon that date today and thought that was a fun little tidbit. More about me. I also recently was recognized as a credentialed manager through the International City Management Association.
Congratulations, Seth.
There is 35 active credentialed managers in Oregon, so it's not a very big group. So I feel
Congratulations.
Congratulations. Tyler.
special for a day, I guess. So thank you for those kind words. And let's see, I mentioned the meeting with Senator Drazen next week. I think that is all I have today.
Winterfest update? Get your final metrics or anything?
39,000 was the final number that I had been informed of. So we didn't quite break 40. But when you look back, I don't know if Tiana's still on or did she sign off? When you look back, pre-Winterfest, we would have like 500 visits in Minot Park in the month of December. And that was, you know, half of those were probably staff that were emptying garbage cans, cleaning bathrooms, Angie and I taking phone calls out there because there wasn't meeting space in here. That first season of Winterfest, I think we only saw like 2,000 or 3,000, which we thought was a huge accomplishment when we, you know, started that program from scratch. And every year it's gone up and gone up and gone up. But I think we doubled from last year to this year, the amount of visits in the park. And so it's really just a massive accomplishment of the park staff and pulled together. I think, you know, the comments that I heard, both at some of the events that I went to and then just in passing over the last couple of weeks is such a great level of appreciation for the number of programs and events that we run. It's not just the lights. It's, you know, every Friday, every Saturday, there's another event, whether it's city staff, whether it's volunteers, hot cocoa, pictures, whatever it is, there's just so much to do, which is a big undertaking, but it provides enough of those programs that if you can't make one, you can make the other, and it keeps people engaged and involved. There's also people that have made it to every single one of those programs, and they're like, this is my Friday night outing with my family, and it keeps my kids off of the screen, and we love it, keep doing it. So it was just really positive to hear a lot of that feedback. And kudos to park staff. I've told them on behalf of the council and myself, thank you numerous times over the last couple of weeks, but certainly another shout out to them for their hard work in programming all of those events and getting all the lights up, getting all the lights taken down, and keeping the park clean and well maintained during that whole season, especially post storms that roll through. It's a big accomplishment for them.
Do you know what the final donation tally was and the cost tally?
I do
Yeah,
not.
here's how that started.
Yeah.
To look out, so if you can just.
We can pull
put
those
something
numbers.
in your report one week. Yeah. Just to see how we're doing. Someday make that more sustainable, long-term budget wise. Thanks.
Yep, absolutely.
You all done?
Yep, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, all right, thank you. Councilor Sid?
No Sandy net update. It's kind of that quarter of the year we just take off, you know. Everyone gets busy, but I wanted to say more about the that dechloramine, I can't even say it, anyway, getting rid of all those dechloramines. When we first started looking at this project, and we first became aware of it, as some of you may recall, we knew we had a wastewater crisis, but the water problem, this is going back like 5 years ago on council, it wasn't on our radar. It wasn't even close. And yet that cryptosporidium edict was looming over us. I guess we were a little naive in thinking that maybe it wouldn't matter. Maybe we'd be able to tie in above or whatever. There was no solution. And so that was something we started raising, minor concerns because we heard a little bit. Jenny came on, but really it was Stantec came in and really took a look at that and said, you're 2 years behind your schedule to make this work. And we're going to have to just do flat out, try to crash that schedule and make this a real project. So this whole project has been on the fast track from the very beginning and dealing with some unknowns, like where was Portland actually going to locate their facility and relative to our old line and tie-ins. Early on in the process was the realization that Portland was going to did use and was going to continue to use this chloramine water, which I didn't even know there was a difference between chlorinated and chloramine water. But when you have to send water a long ways, the chloramines last longer. It's better disinfectant. The chlorine ages out faster. That's why if you're at the end of the line, it tastes better. And you can't mix them. The systems they're not compatible. And so we were faced with a challenge. Plus, there's downsides to the chlorinated water. Like there's certain things you can't use. It'll kill your fish. If you're on dialysis, you can't use it. There's other things for that type of water that chlorinated water is a little easier to deal with. So the Stantec was faced with a real problem. What do we do? Because there isn't a lot. If you go out and search for mixing chloramine and the chlorine water there isn't much out there. And Stantec came back and said, there's no solution to this. You either isolate your water systems or you end up with a very expensive control system to run dual chemistries. And you always have the problem of bad chemistry that will create unpleasant water, safe but unpleasant tasting. So they did a series of experiments to basically design a mechanism to get rid of the chloramines so that we could then chlorinate the water and put it in place. And we just kind of glossed over that tonight, but there was an awful lot of really good engineering work that went in over a year or so to come up with the solution that we're now moving forward with that will maintain our integrity and also provide all those other benefits about being able to backfeed the whole system and things like that. So a lot of good work there. And I just wanted to recognize our experts Stantec and company who really stepped up that. The other thing I want to point out is those estimates came in under what they were. This is not the first time. Every single estimate for water is coming under. It's the only project that was bid from the ground up with Stantec at the helm. For Stantec, we were dealing with other estimates, other things, and we kept seeing this explosion of cost. So I think it's important to recognize that. Obviously, I don't get all the answers right. I will be wrong sometimes. I've always taken it as my role since Mayor Stan put me on this, 5 years ago, to basically be the person to tell it like it is and screw the politics. I don't care whether I get reelected or not because of what I'm saying when it comes to wastewater and water. I'm going to tell you straight. I'm going to tell you what's best. I'm going to rely on my experts to tell me that. And that's what I will continue to do. I feel like that's my role. Not just a role that I was given on council, but my role and my responsibility as a counselor and to do that. I think it's really important when we hire an engineer, if an engineer comes back and tells us something we don't want to hear, don't blame the engineer. That's what we pay him to do, come back and tell us the hard stuff. And then it's our job as a council to make the decisions about what do we do with that information we're given. yes, there's a lot there in any design, there's going to be some leeway and some cost trimming, some alternatives and things that can be done. But we always need to counter that with, is this a best practice? And if it's not, what are we compromising? What risk are we taking on? Whether it's 2 lines going to Gresham, what are the risks or consequences of a failure? Or what are we giving up by not doing that? And not just looking at it as an opportunity to line item veto cost and things like that. At the end of the day, if an engineer says this is the best practice or even a good practice, and it's going to cost this, and we can't afford it, that is our problem. Maybe we don't build it, but that's the solution, right? Berating an engineer isn't going to make it cost less. That's not going to help it. So if we find ourselves in a rock and a hard spot, which we are, and likely headed to, and we can't afford the solution that our engineers are going to tell us, then we're faced with a decision of longer moratorium until we get more money out of somebody, somewhere, or laws change, or some other thing becomes available, for us to move forward. But I just wanted to just remember, about the guys that both work for us in the city. These are, public service employees. Make sure we're recognizing and make sure we're appreciating their hard messages they give us sometimes. And our engineers as well. They're paid more. Yeah, we can yell at them because, they're contractors and that's fine. But still, they're engineers, professionals, and we need to listen to what they say. Some of you are going to be running for re-election this next election, and it's going to be a big deal. And I get that. And if for political reasons, you have to say something that's going to resonate with the voter, I get that. But just know where I'm coming from right now. I don't care about the voter. I will say what we need long-term for the city. That's just where I'm going to come from. And I apologize if I have misrepresented information in the past. I do my best, but I am not infallible. Thank you.
Thank you, Don. Hey, I just I wanted to pass on a kudos to Patrick Deppa, who has Mountain Festival has been working on, and he's been really kind and patient, walking some of their new members through the permitting process and all the other stuff that's been happening. So a big shout out to Patrick for being really patient and kind and making sure that they know and understand and are comfortable with the process. I don't know if you saw in the reports this month, but the library is up to $104,000 in grants. They've been working their tails off, and they've got some more to go. But yeah, $104,000 is a lot of money. The Mountain Festival theme was announced today. They announced it online. There's more coming, but 1776 is the theme, like the parade theme. And I wanted to congratulate Tiana on her new permanent role. I think she's going to do an incredible job. And that's all I got.
I had planning commission last Monday. It was a very weighty meeting. They were dealing with the major modification request for Deer Point basketball court structure, dealing with some of the variants, the type 3 variances that they approved in July, backing those off because they just didn't, the engineers, architect, the things they were asking for they didn't contribute to the usability of the park. So the planning commission did rescind those. They rescinded. It was a really hefty meeting. There was a lot going on and a lot of difference of opinions. Tyler was there. They approved the major modification to remove the conditions set in July final order pertaining to the use of faux wood stain on the I-beams and the columns. That was introduced and brought up to paint it to look like wood, and then it just didn't make sense. The upkeep, the maintenance on all of that, and they didn't use like a black I-beam, they use it's like a mustard yellow, so it's got some character to it.
Like a Dijon mustard,
Yeah.
not a
Not a-
hot dog mustard,
yeah.
to be clear.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like a
If you haven't
bougie
been there,
mustard,
it's
a
not a
honey
bright
mustard.
yellow
It's a
mustard.
honey mustard.
It's a great
Yeah, it's a little more of the muted yellow mustard
New
color.
sandy style colors.
And so then they also voted to remove the requirement of secondary roof forms on the basketball court shelter. They had introduced the idea and had a type 3 variance to put cupolas on top of the structure. Anyway, so those got removed. The engineer came back and said there's no architecturally and logistically, there is no use for those. They're used for agriculture and letting in extra light. And this is a 90-foot basketball court, open on all sides. So those were removed from the plans, which is, since they changed the pitch of the roof, then they wanted to add these things. It kind of made a whole lot of sense. So that was kind of weighty because those were brought up and introduced into the plan, and then it just became really obvious that that was not going to be something that it didn't benefit Sandy Style. It already had 3 elements of Sandy Style, so painting the wood grain did not make it fall into any different code. It already was up to code with currently Sandy Style. So there was a little bit of pushback on that, and a vote that reflected that, but it passed. They did nominate Commissioner Malone to chair for this session, and Commissioner Crosby to vice chair. Because the time constraints were up for Commissioner Wagner, and so that shifted. Jan Lee was in a really serious accident at home, and she's recovering still. It's kind of unclear when she'll be back. I think we got an email about it, but she was severely injured, so
we said flowers, is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't hear anything.
Yeah, but it was described by development department. It was a very bad injury, and so luckily she's recovering. So well wishes for her, and I think that's all. Congratulations to Tiana. No small feat. We've got a lot going on, obviously, but no cuckoos, so there's that. That's all I've got.
All right. Congratulations to Tiana as well. I wasn't gonna say this, but Chief's sitting in the room, so I figure I'll give his people accolades. For those of you that don't know, January is Human Trafficking Month. And one thing I've been impressed with, I used to be a lot more involved in it, but Sandy PD is active in that, as well as doing operations that try to catch people doing bad things to children. And I just want to give the accolades and say I'm really proud to be a member of a community that values that important work. And thank you to your people specifically that are doing that work for their continued endeavor in something that can oftentimes be challenging. So thank you. I had C4 last week, I think, since our last meeting. And out of that, as I've already shared some of that, it all kind of, the agenda kind of got messed up. It was the night of some disarray down in Portland. So the electeds were off to get briefed on that. So we did hear some. With that being said, out of there, again, West Lynn said they might ask for some more money for the locks. But there was no other asks. I did share that, we would be exploring the possibilities of continuing to ask for money for our important projects and that. But everybody else said that they recognized the state's budget crisis, and so they weren't planning on making any asks. So again, I think it maybe there'll be less competition for what little money there is. So I hope I'm glad we made that decision. There was also a lot of discussion, which I was actually shocked about. There was a lot of discussion around again, the Ethics Commission, and a lot of frustration portrayed to the state electeds that were there about our frustration, how it takes away home rule, how it hinders our job to our ability to do our job, I'm sorry, yet they operate in exactly the capacity that we're told is unethical. So there was a lot of, oh yeah, we understand that. A lot of placating to that. That's why I was curious about that. There was actually, I think most cities expressed that concern. So, and then there was discussions, around tolling, if that was going to come back. Representative Gamba gave a very long spiel on how we have to do something with transportation in Oregon and fund it somehow, and gave his points of view on that. Whether to feel free to listen to it and see if you agree or disagree. Happily share afterwards what I said. The one thing as far as Sandy goes, I think these projects, specifically wastewater and water or transition, and we're coming into now where I think we're getting out of the planning phase a lot more, and more to the decision-making phase. And so I don't know out of the committee if there's notes taken or there's minutes or any of that, but something that could be shared with the group more formally so that we can maybe start to have a little more knowledge on what we're voting for at these extremely high costs, especially as we start to move towards, because I do understand both sides of this concern with redundancy versus the cost, what's the risk versus reward. And it's sometimes challenging to make a decision when those are brought. And maybe it's just because it was decided, 3 years ago versus that, but a little more education on how we're here, and then whatever's discussed in there moving forward, especially as we move into these more voting stages.
Yeah, if I can just jump in really quick. So we are certainly, fast forward on the water side of things, heading, into construction. Our plan had been to discontinue those subcommittee meetings on the water side of things and have in the very near future, I don't have a date, but potentially as early as February, maybe do a comprehensive briefing on the water projects for the council. Again, that's really moving out of the design phase and more of, here's kind of the construction elements and here's project costs and where we're in alignment or doing better than, I can't think of the word I want to use, doing better than what was budgeted. And then the plan on the wastewater side of things, we've got the 6-month extension on the facility plan amendment. That document will be the final draft of it done on the internal side by March 31st so that we have ample time to do public outreach and talk with the council and give you time to read it because it's very long, but also, answer questions and go through that process in the months of April and May before we have to get to an adoption standpoint in June. So we're moving in that direction, I guess, is maybe a shorter way to said that, but absolutely hear that point.
Are we not talking about disbanding the wastewater committee as well at some point?
At some point, there will become a natural disband, and that'll work. Disbanding of, I think frankly, we haven't talked about this as a group, so correct me if I'm wrong for those of you council members that are on that committee, but once we have a facility plan amendment that is adopted, it's more decision-making phase as far as the implementation of a preferred alternative. I don't know if there's a lot of value in the subcommittee still existing at that point, but that's certainly a conversation we can have. I don't think we're ready to make that decision tonight. But we're moving into a more comprehensive council update position over the next couple of months.
one thing, as we make these asks, right, for $10 million. I know we've had these discussions, but I'll just share them in here. I'm really curious of how these cost savings, and also, what the addition from money from out of state, how this affects our rates. At the end of the day, it's just like when we build a park, we get questions, well, how is the city broke, but they have this money? Most people look at a banking account like I look at my bank account, I pay my bills, and at the end of the day, that's my bottom line. I get all the discretion I want. Don't need to understand the different pots and how they work with each other. So when we make these asks, when we're looking for support, what does $10 million do for our rate model? How much does this save people down the road? And I think that's an important thing to share. Like last time, I don't know that we really shared that we made an ask. I think we might have a little bit. But I'd really like to make sure we push that forward and what that money would mean for our people, for our citizens, like true numbers, and also like what they can do to help with that. I think that kind of stuff, especially in this, election year, one of the hugest things you take of listening to the tax referendum, and the challenges to it is people's bottom lines are already stretched thin, right? And so what are we doing and how does that affect us and how can we help? So I think those are things we need to really make sure we're pushing out and really putting it forward as we move forward. Whether it be this session or the next one, but ideally even in this one.
I don't know how quickly we can pull that number together for this session, although the session is 6 weeks long. So I hear that point. Certainly, as we move forward into the next legislative session, we'll have better numbers to share. And why I say better is because we will have identified a preferred alternative that will have more final cost estimates. I think when we've got, a couple alternatives that we're exploring and waiting to have a selected one that's been, voted as the preferred alternative, it gets messy to talk about. Here's $5 million equals X percentage of rate decrease. That number changes depending on what project you're talking about, right? There's a different cost for a Gresham solution. There's a different cost for a Sandy River solution. And so that $5 million that we were awarded, maybe $10 million this session, that percentage isn't the same for both of those projects. So all that to say, I think once we have a preferred alternative, it becomes much easier to have that narrative because we have a specific project that we're talking about. But I hear your point. I don't disagree with that at all. Part of the facility plan amendment process as it comes forward over the next couple of months will, and this doesn't answer your question about like legislative funding, but what it will do is present, if you go with alternative one, here's a proposed rate schedule, and that would pick the impact to ratepayers. Option 2 or alternative 2, here's sort of that rate schedule. There's a third alternative, here's kind of that rate schedule. With a big caveat that, subject to change based on final project costs and things like that, but trying to paint the picture of here's the financial impact of each of these scenarios. And those scenarios have pros and cons, right? Some project might be more expensive than another, but it's faster to do. Some might be cheaper, but it's maybe not necessarily feasible right now. So we're just trying to paint that picture of cost, timeline, end result for the city, what all that means and how that all marries together. Kind of goes to your point about project costs, but it's work in progress.
So as this rolls out, are you going to be, I realize it's going to come out sorry to hijack this, but are you going to, like we did with the water, where we had individual meetings and you gave us this a little heads up on it ahead of time meetings? I don't know if anybody else wants that. I would like a little more time than when I get it to see it in an agenda to just think and process and chew on it a little bit.
So I don't have a good answer for you there. We are intending to have all of the document completed by March 31st so that we have April and May to answer questions and talk about it before there's a vote in June. So there will certainly be ample time. If there's a request for more one-on-one type meetings to go through, we can certainly accommodate that. But I don't have like a schedule or a proposal.
I don't expect, I just didn't know if that was in the plan. I would personally like that. I don't know how everybody else up here feels. I think I found that valuable and helpful.
My job is to make sure that you're informed on the things you're about to vote on. So happy to make sure that anyone has their questions answered before we get to a place to vote.
Right. John?
Yes, thank you.
No report, just normal? Okay, let's see, I got a few things. Yeah, I guess I see it as important to move pretty quickly towards full council involvement in wastewater. We don't need to necessarily continue with the water because we're now implementing the projects that all got planned, and it's just a matter of that may come up as an issue as to what were the final bids, what were the final costs, how does that affect our rates and things like that. That will have to be discussed in council meetings, but the wastewater amendment plan is just really important for all of us to understand what's involved, what are the alternatives, what are the pros and cons of those alternatives, what are the costs of those alternatives, and not only in just total costs, but what do those alternatives look like for our ratepayers and our SDCs? Because most people, including me, it's kind of a odd. I had no idea conceptually what $160 million project means as it regards rates. So until you make that real for me as to what that means for rates for the next 10 years, I really need the rate and the SDC information to be able to help inform my decision, because otherwise, it's all very elusive and conceptual. So I am going to be pushing for that as part of our having all that information as part of our alternatives. And I get also that the problem with that model of trying to kind of get rates in SDCs is that, well, how much free money are we going to get? How much allocations are we going to get? What's the timeline? Are we making rate increases quickly, large increases, and then not, ramping it up slowly, or what? There's a lot of variables that you can add into the mix to make it, better or worse. But all things equal for the different alternatives, I just want to have some simple thing that says for every $1 million that we get in extra free money, that's
not free money.
Huh?
It's not free money.
I understand that, but it is
Tax
to our
dollars.
ratepayers. I understand that, but it's to our it affects our ratepayers, and so it is. It's I get it. It's grant money, but it does mean that we can reduce our SDCs or our fees, and that's what's really important to me. And that said, for every $5 million or something that the project cost goes up, what does that do to our rates? And I don't have that information now, and that's what's kind of making me a little bit difficult. Maybe if you're asking Don about it, I got pretty thorny at the last meeting, the subcommittee meeting, and I got really pretty shell-shocked by the presentation, because at the week that we were supposed to be getting the final wastewater plan, the cost had gone up significantly. And I was not, I expected the cost to be going down, because instead of going, at Gresham Alternative or something, going 14 miles to Gresham, I knew we weren't going to need to go all that way, or I suspected, we've been told that we probably wouldn't have to go that way. We could use some of their line. And so I expected costs to go down, not up. And so I didn't react to that well, because I really do feel that at this late date, at the very end of the process, to be told that now the costs are so much, are being estimated high. And when we started getting into why those reasons were that they were high, it just didn't make sense. And having a 1 hour Zoom meeting to present all that, understand it, and explain why is not adequate. and it wasn't a professional way for the whole thing to kind of get delivered to us. I've had plenty of, contracts and consultant meetings over my career that, it's very important that you don't kind of drop those kind of huge bombs at the very end of the process when people are expecting kind of the final validation of things. So,
Kathy, can I add?
yeah.
That's exactly my point is, we just voted for $1.6 million or what it was tonight. I have no idea what Kathleen's talking about. I don't know if I know Dawn and Kathleen probably do being on the committee. I don't know if anybody else does. I don't.
No idea.
And so that
I've been asking
may,
for reports.
yeah, that may have very well have influenced my decision tonight. I don't know that it would have or not.
For the record, wastewater versus freshwater.
But at the end of the day, I'm gonna go back to it's all the same pot. At the end of the day, it's all the same bill. Right? That at the end of the day, that's still almost, $300-400 for a Sandy citizen.
Right.
Because that's the way it comes out.
Yeah.
Right.
So-
And so again, while I understand that, I think we do to a degree have to look at it from a collective whole. So again, that may have very well have affected my decision tonight on specifically, redundancy and what's best. That's why I'm asking for that, is exactly.
And that's why I'm asking those hard questions, because I just feel like, and
I think
that
we
will-
should disband the wastewater.
yes, that will come out, and that's fine, we can do that, because I do feel like it is important at this stage of the game, we need to kind of start, making sure we all understand it and what the alternatives are and be involved in the options to the extent that there are options, if we're looking at, making some incremental decisions about, we could do it this way for this much and this way for that much, and this one's good, the pros and cons and the costs and all that. That's what we need to have. I'm not going to, questioning that is not something that's our role here. And so I do kind of, well, I'm not even gonna say that. That's kind of how I'm operating. So,
So disband it. It's your call.
yeah, I'll talk to Tyler about it more. We've got a little bit of, we're gonna talk about the next meeting, and we had a little bit of conversation about it today. But I will go on to, the county TSP planning. Did you have a chance to kind of think about whether you're able to kind of carry the water for
I
us?
told
on
you
that?
I would, last
did you?
meeting, when you asked me.
Okay, good. Okay, it's probably the end of the meeting and
It's fair.
yeah. Okay, then, council, one of the things that we talked about and came out of the evaluation process is that I would like to kind of add an item, on our agenda, not only for Nellie, so making a point about that, but also just kind of having a future bin list, of issues that kind of come up, and part of it kind of came about where, I might have an issue about X. And I may mention it in this, but I may mention it just to Tyler when I'm meeting one-on-one with him. And he's kind of wondering, well, should I run with that, or is that everybody's issue or not? And so having the ability for all of us to kind of bring those to light and see if there's, we all agree that needs to be something to go with. And we don't want to add a bunch of more work to the whole city's workload, but if it's something that's high priority and needs to kind of happen, and if Tyler thinks it's too much, if he has to take something else off the plate that's lower priority, he needs to kind of let us know that. But having that opportunity to kind of get a consensus or not a consensus tell on stuff that we bring up. So let's make that a part of the agenda. And then as part of that, one of the things that will probably involve that is the planning code changes. And we've got a little bit of opportunity that we've got to slow down in the planning and development department. This is the great time to start making changes to our planning code and development code, including like we have a parks and open space zone. But when we designated it, I was like, well, what is the proposed code for that zone? And they're like, oh, we haven't developed that yet. I'm like, well, I was a little bit against doing that without the associated code, but we have an opportunity to do that now. Like, what kind of required parking are we having in parks and open space? What about bathrooms? What about, this business about the, larger structures or whatever. So this is a good opportunity to kind of give those folks the ability to get, and I know I've come up with a couple. I know all of you have kind of come up with different code changes that have kind of landed. So let's kind of keep that bin list going and make sure that we kind of able to take some time in a meeting or a workshop, better a workshop, to assess those possible code changes we'd like to have worked on. The Deer Point ribbon cutting is February 7th at 12 p.m. So I hope y'all can make that. It's I think it'll be really great to see that come to fruition.
You
The
have that,
I
you have
was
that as a calendar first.
I was thrilled to see the Police Employee of the Year go to Officer Carter. So really congratulations to him. And I think that's a great program. The I also thrilled to see Tiana's appointment. I think she's gotten so much experience, both in the, Parks and Trails maintenance aspect. She's already got that all covered. So having that background is a real plus for other candidates that don't usually have that background. And I think she's been able to learn a terrific amount on parks planning, parks, capital investment project execution and all that. So I think she's still got, some mentoring to be done, but I think she's got hit the ground running, and I'm really impressed with what she can do for us as the new parks director. So the Clackamas County Parks is having their master planning happening, and I'm on the advisory board for that. So that's meeting is happening this week. The contract, one of the things that I'm going to bring up is this, kind of came up earlier, but this, we have had a Clackamas River Watershed Council contract for $250,000 to deal with the Tickle Creek stuff. That's contract. And so allowing volunteers to come in and do what we're paying for a contract to do is kind of where I was going with all that. That's not okay. That's a violation of contract law that, so we need to kind of figure out, have some contract, and I haven't raised it as an issue, even though it's been on my mind because Rochelle wasn't here and everybody was overloaded with park stuff. But going forward, we need to kind of have a status report on the, that contract for Tickle Creek. And then also the other thing that's still kind of outlying there is the special project allocation to the Chamber of Commerce for $22,000 and whether, what's going on with that. That's, we still have an opening on the planning commission that we're going to need to fill. So Jeff and I will kind of work on, is there any other openings or did we get them? I thought we had.
I believe there's one on Sandy Net. There's there's
Okay.
2 or 3.
All right, let's kind of figure out a process to kind of get those filled in here in the next couple months so that we don't have any outline things there. So that's all I had. Other than that, I appreciate everybody's comments. I do, we're not always have to agree, but I appreciate hearing from everybody. And yeah, have a good week. Thank you.